going on, everybody? It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. It means it's Q&A day. Now, great questions this week. Super interesting questions this week. I'm excited for you all to see the questions. I'll share my thoughts, and then you guys tell me what I got right and what I got wrong. As always, I look forward to hearing what you think about my responses and the topics in general. But first, just a quick reminder, the Penny Sleever, they sponsored our 2-year celebration with Captain MidLife cards. Now, over the weekend, I mailed out about 150 cards. Now, remember, you also get a Mr. Penny Sleever card, which on the back has the promo code MidLife, where you get 10% off if you use the promo code MidLife. So a cool way to thank them for sponsoring this. Show them some love. Next time you buy some supplies, if you're low on supplies, top loaders, semi-rigids like these. I mean, this is a Mr. Penny Sleever right here. One touches. Consider buying it from the Penny Sleever. They really have high quality stuff. And that's one of the things that I think is cool is when you get yours, if you haven't ordered it yet, I still have more. Use the link in the description below. You'll see how high quality they are, how clear they are, how sturdy they are, how nice they are. So check those out. Again, while supplies last, I have 250 available, and I've sent out about 150 last I checked. So this coming weekend, I'll send out the next ones. If I sent you one and you got it, consider tagging me and the Penny Sleever on your Instagram if you show and share a picture of it, which would be super cool. I'm planning on showing some of those on the channel, some of those Instagram posts. So maybe a picture of you holding it or something. I don't know if you're interested. If not, that's cool too. I just think they're super fun. Also, in the description on the form that you'll fill out, it'll ask you if you want it signed or not signed. Happy to do that. So more of those going out this weekend. But let's take a look right now at this week's first question. Thanks, Greg. A question for your consideration, and if you feel like it, response. After making a big purchase, do you ever feel like smaller cards just don't do it for you anymore? For example, after your first $100 card, does it ever feel sort of pointless to go back to $30 cards? I've been trying to navigate this lately, where once you break a new boundary and get a lot of excitement out of the purchase, and then out of having and showing the card, it can be hard to get excited about buying less cool, expensive, special cards, even if cards in that tier used to excite you. And even though, of course, it's not a sustainable way to collect if every card has to be better than the previous one. I hear what you're saying. I definitely hear what you're saying. I feel like my response to this is kind of complicated. So I don't know how good how well I'm going to do at kind of explaining my thoughts on this. First off, when you buy a big card, now I'll use myself as an example, right? At the National, I bought I bought the two most expensive cards in my collection. I bought my T206 Walter Johnson, and I bought my Ernie Banks rookie card. And the first thing that happens when you spend a lot on a card is you're out of money, right? I mean, I spent a lot of money on those two cards. So if I have to go over the top of that card again, it's going to be a really long time before I buy another card. I do think that I understand the thought of the rush, the adrenaline rush, right? Of obtaining a card that's a massive card to your collection. You want to match that, because otherwise it doesn't feel as exciting. But I think that I actually because I haven't I haven't bought a card anywhere near the amount of the two on the National, but I bought a lot of cards that I'm really excited about. So how did I accomplish that? How did I buy cards that I'm really excited about, but aren't nearly the value and the cost of those ones that I bought? For me, I think the way that I can try to articulate it is if you look at people who have been in the hobby for a really, really long time, okay? You look at people who have really large collections, they have a huge breadth to their collection. How do they still get excited about buying a card? I think what it comes down to is it's one of the reasons that the longer people are in collecting, the older they go in what they collect. Okay, my buddy Orlando from A Collector's Dream, my buddy John Mangini, those guys are still collecting, but the things that they're buying now are not the same things, generally speaking, being very general here. They tend to be rarer things. Mangini buys the rare sets, okay, I'll just use the term, oddball sets. He buys a lot of oddball stuff. Again, I know that that's a polarizing term, and I think part of the reason for it is you want something new, something fresh, something that is exciting. And when you can't just go, I bought $1,000 card, the next one's got to be $1,500, and then $2,000, and then $3,000, and then $4,000. You can't continue to just buy over the top of what you last bought monetarily. But what you can do is you can buy over the top from a rarity point of view. So I think what we've seen over the last couple of years is a lot of people on YouTube that have YouTube channels that I enjoy. My buddy Sammy Thunder, if you look at Sammy Thunder's collection from 3 years ago when I first started watching his channel to now, he doesn't have as many cards, but the cards that he has are much, much rarer. They're much lower population cards. So I don't think that it needs to be more money that you spend in order to get the rush. It could be something else instead. And what that might be is something that you haven't seen before or something that is harder to find. You get the rush from the rarity factor instead of the expensive factor. But what you're saying, I think, is very real. It is very real to say, I bought $1,000 card, and now if I buy a $50 card, it doesn't seem that exciting. It would seem that exciting if that $50 card, there's only 4 of in existence, right? My dad, I've mentioned many, many times, he put together a 59 set, he put together a 60 set. Right now, you know what he's been buying? Older stuff. He's been buying mid to early 50s cards because he's done the 58, the 59, the 60 thing. He's had a lot of cards from the 60s. But the thing that he hasn't had a lot of is cards from the middle to early 50s. So that's where he's been leaning. He bought his 53 Mantle when we were in Cleveland for the National, for example. He just came home this weekend from a show that I wasn't able to go at because I was at Lucy's soccer tournament. And he just recently showed me some cool 55 Bowman cards that he picked up. That 10, 20 years ago, that wasn't his lane. But the way that you can still create excitement without spending a fortune is to start to look for some of the less common things. Not necessarily rare, but rarer than what you have been collecting. More scarce than what you have been collecting in your collection. So yeah, there's no doubt about it that when you buy a big card and that adrenaline rush, which is awesome, is hard to duplicate, you can get it without spending a lot of money. It just might be, something rarer. You know, one of my favorite YouTube channels is Ryan Nolan Breakout Cards. And Ryan Nolan has gone heavy into non-sport cards. He was heavy into, you know, baseball, vintage baseball, and then he started doing some boxing, and he started doing some cricket cards he was heavy into, and right now he's heavy into non-sport. He's going from more common to rarer and rarer and rarer and rarer. And that's where he gets the rush. And I think that might be the way to go so you don't have to break the bank.
Hi, Greg. Question for a future video. What card or set is growing on you lately? For myself, I have always been a Topps or Bowman guy and never really dabbled in any oddball sets. However, I've found the 80s and 90s Mother's Cookies sets are really starting to grow on me lately. The graphics on the cards are fairly plain, but the images are super high quality, and I think they did a great job of capturing some of the great players from those eras. A few months ago, I spotted and then quickly purchased an autographed Bonds in the 94 set, and ever since have started to look for more of those cards. They just look insanely sharp, especially when displayed well. What card or set is it that you feel that way about?
All right. What card or set's been growing on me? I would say there are a couple of sets. Now, I don't really know how to explain what I like. I don't feel like there is a commonality between the two sets that have been growing on me, but there are two particular sets, or looks, at least I should say, that I've really been drawn to. And they're not similar at all. First, the 54 Red Heart set. You know, there's a beautiful Mantle card in the set. I recently picked up the Spawn from the set. But there are other great cards too. There's a really cool mini Minoso card in there. There are others. I'm not going to go through and list them all. It's a smaller set. I think it's like 37 cards, less than 40, I believe, in the set. That particular set has the look of those cards. There's something about them that I've really been drawn to. That if I were to go back 10 years, I wasn't drawn to them at all. But that set has been one that I picked up one card and I've thought about going into others. I'm not really a set builder, but right now, if I were to build a set, it would be that set. My buddy Dan of Dan's Vintage PC or Vintage Cards, he's been building that set. He picked up a Duke Snider, I believe, at the National. He showed me when we were in Cleveland. He's putting that set together, and I totally get it. I think but he's putting together like 20 sets, so that doesn't really count. But I like that set a lot. The other set I really like a lot, very similar, is the M101-4 and M101-5. Now, very similar looks, but the look of that set, I really like. I picked up a Roger Peckinpah card, a Yankee captain, from that set at the National. I picked up another card from that set recently, which I'll show. It's not here, or I'd show it now. That set, it's black and white. They're not full-size cards, but the look of them is I just love the look of them. And some of them are blank backs, and some of them have ads on the back. Doesn't matter to me which one. I like the blank backs. I like the ads on the back. But that set has a really cool look to me too. So which two sets? Definitely. Those are the two that right now I've been really drawn to that have grown on me. I don't think either is my favorite set of all time. My favorite set of all time would be a little bit harder. Again, these things tend to change, but those two are ones that 3 years ago I wasn't that interested in, and recently they catch my eye real fast.
Hey, Greg, if you could only keep your top 5 favorite cards and the others you had to sell, what would they be?
This is a great question from my guy Lou. Now, yeah, this is sort of a question that we all think about from time to time. If I could only keep one of my cards, or 2 of my cards, or 5 of my cards, what are those cards? Well, first of all, I'd say, a lot of us would kind of lean toward more expensive cards because those would be harder to replace than less expensive cards. That's what a lot of people would say. But for me, monetary value is one thing, but emotional attachment and value is something completely different. You can put a value on some things in life, and then some things in life you can't put a value on. And the memory attached to certain cards, how you acquired the card, a lot of the times has as much to do with how important that card is to us as the actual monetary value. Because at the end of the day, it's sort of like if your house caught on fire, what would you grab? And it may not be the most valuable thing in the house, right? It might be the things that are the most important to you. So if the house went up in flames, right, I'd grab my wife, I'd grab my daughters, a lot of us would grab our pets. Those are the first things we grab. Then, if we had time to go back in and get something else, it might be certain pictures, unless they're digital and they're in the cloud, right? But back in the day, everyone would grab their photo albums when they only had the hard copies of pictures, right? So the 5 that mean the most to me are not the 5 most expensive cards. So let me go through them. And I'll briefly explain why each of them is special. Now, some of these stories I've told, and some of them I've told recently, and some of them it's been a long time since I've told, but I'll go ahead and share each briefly since I've done it in detail before. First card that came to mind. When I was a kid, as you all know, I was a huge Roger Clemens fan. And my dream card was the 1984 Fleer Update Roger Clemens. And the card was $80 at the time. And I wanted that card, but $80 in about, this probably would have been 1989 maybe, 88, 89. That was not a reasonable amount of money for me to obtain to buy the card. And if I had $80, I would literally have to spend every single cent I had on the card. Well, one of the things that happened, which I'll actually refer to again here in a few minutes, is there was a card show in Concord, California, and they had door prizes. And as a way to kind of have money circulating through the room, when you came in the door, which I think it was like $1 or $2 to get in, you'd get a ticket. And the ticket, there was a raffle every hour. And every hour, what would happen is when they pull the raffle ticket, the person with the winning raffle ticket would get a $100 credit voucher to be used in the room. It wasn't $100 cash. It wasn't a $100 Visa gift card. It was like a piece of paper, like script, like could only be used in this room at a dealer, and then the dealer could turn that voucher in for cash to the promoter of the show, which is a fantastic idea because what it does is it stimulates spending in the room, right? It gets more money being spent. So they basically took all the money from the entry fees and just instead of adding that to the promoter's pot, it circulated it, which made the dealers happy because they knew every hour there'd be another $100 in the room to be spent. So what did I do? Well, after I went through the show and looked through and everything, I decided the smart move would be as people were leaving to say, hey, are you leaving? And this is Shy Greg doing this, by the way. Are you leaving? Yes. Is it okay if I have your raffle ticket if you're leaving? Oh, yeah, sure. And people would give me their raffle ticket. Again, at this time, I'm like 9 or 10. So I'm accumulating raffle tickets over the course of the day. And yes, when I went through the room earlier, there was a Roger Clemens 84 Fleer update in the room with an asking price of $80. Well, believe it or not, eventually one of the tickets that I had, because I remember I had like 20, 25 tickets. As he's reading the numbers, you remember those old things where it was like one said keep this coupon and the other one said ticket, and they had matching numbers and they'd rip them down the middle. So I had a whole bunch of those lined up, right? And eventually my ticket got called. And yes, I spent my $100. I literally ran over to the promoter at the microphone, got my $100 voucher. I went straight to the table that had the Clemens for $80. Didn't even negotiate. Here's the voucher. And off I went with my Clemens. And I still have it today. And this is the card. Now, that is a very special card for me. That was my dream card, and I got it. Now, the next one, you all know my story about the National, right? Where I have, for years and years and years, wanted the 54 Topps Ernie Banks rookie card. And I've been searching for it, one that met all my criteria, one that was centered, that had good eye appeal, that had good color, and was in my price range. And at the National, I'm at my buddy Ash's table with my friend Darren and my dad. And Ash hands us a stack of cards and said, hey, I just bought these. I didn't know if any of them, I haven't even priced them yet. Let me know if you're interested in any of them. And Darren's flipping through them as I'm standing on his shoulder. And sure enough, there's the Ernie Banks in a PSA 5 that checked all the boxes. And I asked Ash, what do you want for it? And he quoted me a price about $500 under comp, doing me the massive friend discount. Probably tells me the price that he just paid for it. So there I was, and as I'm looking at the card, a bunch of my friends start showing up. Scott Ranger Studios walks up, Mookie Chilson walks up, Theo Clemente Collector walks up, others as well. And I bought the card, and that Ernie Banks rookie card is a card that will never leave my collection, just like the Clemens. Now, another card that is definitely high on my list is, and I've wanted forever, was the Yogi Berra rookie card. And I've talked about it for a long time on the channel, how I wanted the card, how I wanted a nice grade one, how I was searching for one. Well, there was one on eBay that I had been watching for a long time, and I didn't tell anybody that I was watching this particular one, but it was on my watch, my favorite list on eBay. And I get a phone call from a friend who says, hey, I bought something for you. I'm going to send it to you. And lo and behold, the most generous gift I've ever gotten was that Yogi Berra 48 Bowman rookie card, the one that I had been watching on eBay for a few months. And bang, shows up at my door as a gift, which still blows my mind that my friend sent me that card. Incredible. So that is definitely one of the 5. So that puts me at 3. So I have 2 more. The next one, the third card I've wanted for 30 years is the Brooks Robinson rookie card. And it's an expensive card. I wanted one to be, I really wanted one in a 5. And, it's like a $750 card. And so I kind of was thinking maybe eventually I'll find one that I like at the price point and the grade and the look and and I say 5, I just mean quality-wise, kind of that range. Didn't have to have a 5 on the label. I just wanted one with good color and decent corners and decent centering. And so I bought a rare ice cream card of Roger Peckinpah because I collect Yankee Captain cards. It's one of the things that I collect. Well, this particular Roger Peckinpah card I bought about 10 minutes after it hit eBay on a buy it now. And lo and behold, it was a pop 1 in PSA. I think SGC has 1 or 2. So there's very few of this card. I did a video on it. Many of you may have seen that video. And a person who's building that set, number 1 in the registry of the Tharps ice cream card set, said, that's one of the cards I'm missing. So he emailed me and said, Greg, I really want that card. And we went back and forth for a few weeks about, because I mean, he's building the set. This is the only one out there. It felt like it should go to him, but I didn't want to just give it away because I liked having the card. So we eventually worked a deal where I made a trade, this Tharps Roger Peckinpah card, for the Brooks Robinson in a PSA 5 that met all the check boxes. And the way that I acquired that card and the fact that I acquired it, how I did, I mean, just the whole thing was perfect. So that is probably, that would be one of the 5. Now, the last one that I would pick, again, I'm a sentimental person. I'm an emotional person. The value of a card is not always the numeric value or monetary value. It's the emotional value as well. And one of the hardest things I ever went through, and I don't know if it's normal to have struggled with it as much as I have, but was losing my dog. I had a dog as a kid. I was not nearly as connected to that dog as my buddy Mandy, who I lost in January. And I did a video on that, and the whole thing just tore me up real bad. And, I held Mandy as they put her down, and the whole thing is just awful. And I struggled with it, and a good friend of mine who I met through the hobby, who I'm proud to call a friend, he said, I bought a gift for you to honor your friendship with Mandy. And so he sent me a card, and it was a 1933 Sport King Sepulchre card. And what that card is at the time, it was the only card of a dog and his owner. And it's from the 33 Gaudi Sport King set, which I love the set. And it's just like such a thoughtful, meaningful gift for me. I mean, when I opened it and I read his note, I just broke down. And just everything involved in that and the meaning behind it makes that an extremely special card for me. So if I had to pick 5, those would be the 5 cards that I would keep. And again, none of it really has to do with monetary value because I didn't even list the most valuable card in my collection. I listed the 5 that the acquisition of them and the story of how it all played out means the most to me.
Greg, another fine episode. I would be curious to know what Dr. Beckett thinks is the biggest threat to the hobby at this time. I think the modern breaker gambling type culture could have a huge negative impact going forward if young collectors get caught up in the hype of the expensive chase cards. Just my opinion.
Oh, great question. Now, I didn't see this question until after the interview that Darren of Return to Collecting and I did with Dr. Beckett. So I didn't ask Dr. Beckett this question. We talked a little bit around this kind of topic. Here's really the thing. When people have negative experiences with anything, at a certain point, what happens is people avoid whatever it is that they experienced. If if you go to a baseball game and every single time you go to the baseball game, you're heartbroken when you leave, eventually you're going to stop going to the baseball game, right? If every time you go golfing, every single time you come home and you're miserable and you break all your clubs over your knee, eventually you're going to say, golf's not for me. Now, some people are saying, I'm miserable every time I go golfing, but I still go golfing. That's not true. You have some good shots. You have some good rounds. It's not every time. But if every single time it was just miserable, you'd eventually stop. And I think you kind of hit it on the head. The whole breaker thing, it's cards, but it's just legalized gambling. It's just playing the roulette wheel. And you're playing one number every time. And if you go to the roulette wheel and they spin it, they do the whole thing and you miss and then you miss again and you just keep picking number 7 over and over and over and it never hits and it never hits and it never hits. Eventually you're going to walk away and go, I'm never playing roulette again. I don't want to even see roulette, right? Well, that's the thing with breaks. Almost everyone loses. And if you lose and you lose and you lose and you lose, even though it's basically gambling that you're losing at, it feels like it's cards that you're losing at. I mean, I've talked about my bad luck with opening packs. Like, I don't ever get anything with packs. I like opening packs, but I always lose. I've bought boxes and opened them. Trash. I mean, I never gotten anything. Eventually, you got to say, it's not for me anymore. And the way that it's literally Willy Wonka's golden ticket, where like a couple of people get the world and then everybody else gets nothing. What ends up happening is you end up with like enough people that leave dissatisfied that it's not good. And I think that these manufacturers, Panini and Topps, really need to be careful that they don't create this situation where everything is garbage. I mean, literally, you watch these breaks, they flip through them, and most of the cards go in the garbage can, and then a couple they pull out, if that, per pack or box. Most of them go in the garbage can. They're like, the base cards have no value. And that was the question that came up with Dr. Beckett, is the devaluing of base. It was Darren's question. It was a great question. So if base cards are virtually worthless, then, and the only thing that matters is the big hit, the case hit. And the case hit is worth a fortune and everything else is junk. Are people going to stick around in the hobby? And that's one of the reasons I don't really do wax. I do singles. And that's a concern I have for kids, is if their entry into the hobby is just doing breaks. So I'm with you 100%. I think it's a dangerous game. I think that they continue to kind of just bleed people to the point where at some point people are going to just start walking away. There has to be more hits than just the case hit, or else enough people will get burned enough times that they'll just stop. And I think it's a very dangerous game that they're playing right now. And I think they have to be careful. And I think they have to figure out a way to have more than just that one big hit.
In one of your recent videos, you mentioned that your local card show has a lot of Pokemon cards. So here is my question. If you were to create your own MidLife sports card show, with you being able to promote and organize the show, what would it look like to stand out from the other card shows? Would you have live music and a DJ? How about pizzas, mushrooms and onions? But seriously, would there be pizza? What about grown men wearing pirate costumes? Well, maybe not that. But it wouldn't be a terrible idea. Seriously, though, don't forget the mushrooms and onions on my pizza.
All right. Man, what now, first of all, let me say this. I've actually really thought about doing this. I've actually really thought about putting on a show in the Sacramento area. I tend to sometimes bite off more than I can chew. I tend to get excited about an idea and I go with it. And then I look back and I go, oh my gosh, what did I do that for? And I don't feel like at this moment in time that I can quite do it and do it the justice that I want it to be. I wouldn't start with a massive show. It wouldn't be a 300 or 400 table show. I would start with a small show and see how it went. And if it worked, then I might move up. I've actually thought about a couple of facilities in which I might do it. It's something that at some point I'd really consider. Now, right now where I live, I feel like there are so many shows happening that there's a little bit of, it's just becoming white noise that, oh, there's a show. I mean, it went from in this area, there being a show like every 2 or 3 months to now there's like 3 a month. And I think that to a certain extent, some of these are going to wash out and it's going to leave the best shows is all that's left. What would I do is the question though. What would a show be? Now, one of the facilities that I've considered is the golf club that I'm a member at has a ballroom and it's a beautiful room. And attached to the ballroom is a bar. Now, here's kind of my thought. I've thought about, okay, if I were to do a show there, if I were to do a show at the club, what would that show look like? So I think for a really good show has a place where you could still be at the show and in the show, but relax and not be in the middle of the congestion of the show. So I've thought about that side room, the bar area and the sitting area there, have tables where people could just go, look at cards, trade, talk to each other, hang out, and the bar be open. Like, yeah, like, you know, beer and stuff in that room. So you don't have to leave to get food. See, a lot of people, like dealers, when dealers are at a show, dealers have to find a way to get food and smuggle it back into the show in order to eat at the show. But if you could eat at the show, so if in the side little bar where you could order food and drinks and hang out and sit and relax on the patio, which is all attached at this location, and then in the adjoining room, the ballroom, be the show. So one thing I would definitely have is I'd definitely have some food and some drinks and some places where you could sit and trade with people, show each other what you got, get a load off, and not be on your feet and take a break for a second. I definitely would do that. Music at a show? No, I'm not feeling music at a show. I've been at shows that have DJs and they're doing loud music and stuff. That is not what I like. When you walk into a show and you hear like the noise of a show, there's a reason when I do my videos of card shows, I voice over the video. I muffle down a little bit, but I allow the sound of that show because that sound of a card show, it's got a certain sound to it. I like it. And it's like you walk in and the sound is there. It's sort of like the roar at a golf tournament. If you've ever heard it, I know we've all watched the Masters. You hear that roar, when there's a great shot. I remember the first time I was at the U.S. Open and at Torrey Pines, the first time I heard that roar. And I was like, whoa, that's a special sound. There's a special sound to me. And if you mute that out with music, I don't get that. That's a special sound that I like. I would also say that you have to be aware of the Pokemon and the vintage and the modern. I would want to do a sports card show because it's sort of like snowboarders and skiers on the ski slopes. Like if I go up to Lake Tahoe which is an hour and a half away. The snowboarders, they kind of think it's their mountain, and the skiers kind of think it's their mountain. And the skiers kind of roll their eyes at the snowboarders, and the snowboarders kind of roll their eyes at the skiers. I kind of think it's that way with sports card collectors and Pokemon collectors. TCG, whatever. So if I were doing a show, I would have sports cards. It wouldn't have any of the TCG stuff. Now, I don't have a problem with TCG stuff. I don't have a problem with Pokemon cards. That is a different show. That would be a different show that somebody else would attend. But if I was putting a show together, it would be that. It would be a show of sports cards with an attached room with food and drink and a place to sit and relax. The other thing, I think, is that whole injecting money into the room. The other thing that those raffle tickets did is I think it made people linger at the show longer. Because they're like, well, if I wait 20 more minutes, they're going to do a raffle. So what I would do is I would probably cover my costs with the table fees. And then all the money from the entrance fee would be like a 50-50 raffle sort of thing in credit at the show. So if the first hour, $200 came in, then I would raffle off maybe like two $100 or the whole $200. And then the next hour, $80 came in, I'd raffle off the $80. I would do something to encourage people to hang around, which is good for the dealers, which the dealers would like because there's more people staying in the room. And then also give that money back. Making a great show doesn't always mean making a killing. You know, some of these promoters are making a killing. You don't have to make a killing. You don't have to make, you can make enough, and then you can take some of that money and inject it back in. Now, if you were going to set up at a show and the table was, relatively affordable, and you knew that over the course of the day, there was going to be $1,000 given away that had to be spent in the room, that would be good for business. And so I would, and also it would be, when you're forking over the $3 to get in or whatever, and you go, well, I'm now also entered into the drawing, that would be cool too, right? So food, drink, place to relax, sports cards only. I would raffle off the money because who knows, someone could walk away with an 84 Fleer Update Roger Clemens that they treasure for the rest of their life if you do the giveaway. Hey, if you have a question for an upcoming episode, do not hesitate to ask it in the comments below. But also, remember, get your Captain Midlife card, courtesy of the Penny Sleever, and show the Penny Sleever some love for the celebration. Go to thepennysleever.com, use the promo code MidLife, show your love. Let's let him see. Let's let Isaac, my buddy Isaac at thepennysleever.com. Let's let him see the impact that Midlife Nation has. Top loaders, semi-rigids, one touches, all your hobby needs, high quality, great prices. Show them some love. See you next week.